I wanted to revisit something. I want to revisit Dr. J's top 10 list because he mentioned a couple of guys on there who didn't win a ring, which just, I remember Nick Wright was trying to talk about nobody would put a top 10 list with a guys that didn't win a ring. Well, Dr. J had Elgin Baylor and Karl Malone on there. And that spoke volumes of what he felt. I don't have a problem when someone has a top 10 list that they value a player they respect. Oscar Robertson said Elgin Baylor was the greatest player he ever saw. And Elgin Baylor, if you look at some of the records, let the numbers speak. The old saying, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Let the numbers speak for themselves. Elgin Baylor still got some historical numbers that ain't been touched, despite the advancements of shooting threes, despite the fact that, I guess now, what do you call the cats that play now? They're supposed to be super specimen. So that Elgin Baylor's records could last that long should speak volumes. But Dr. J got a top 10 list where there's two guys who didn't win a ring, which just goes to show that everybody ain't blown away by rings. Now, when we talk about Karl Malone, he just lost two finals to Jordan and the Bulls. But he's considered one of the greatest power forwards ever, one of the greatest players ever. You gotta make the case he's top 30. I make the case he's in the 20s somewhere. I take Karl Malone over Scottie Pippen. If you consider that a hot take, feel free. But I'll tell you why. Because Karl Malone was a starter. Like, he really belonged. Like, you could respect his game kept getting better and better. Fade away, pick and roll. He was legit. And I thought overall as a player, that's how I looked at it. I think that when people get in totality, they have their own ways of how they look at people. And I think that you are entitled to your list. And if your list happens to include a guy who didn't win a ring, there's nothing wrong with that. But nothing wrong with that. Not at all. Because there's going to be a guy somewhere along the line where people aren't going to be, I know a lot of cats that if it wasn't for rings, Charles Barkley would be considered in a top 15 or 16. Because Barkley had the respect and he was bad. He just didn't finish, So there are guys that, but when LeBron James tried to go on about ring culture, every time he does a list, he always includes guys that won jewelry. Most cats tend to. But this Dr. J list was great because, he had Magic and Jordan and he had Kareem and Russell and Chamberlain and those guys. But he had Tiny Archibald who did win a ring. But he had Elgin Baylor